So now the session is open for discussions. Unfortunately, I had got locked out in between because of some net problem. So on my screen, I am not able to see the questions which were asked earlier on. Dr. Vijay Mongoli had asked few questions. I know that. Dr. Priya, can you just please read out those questions and ask? I think most of them were for Advocate Hitesh. Yeah.
Sure. We have a few questions, Dr. Hitesh, from Dr. Vijay Mongoli. That's to you. So after that, I would be having some questions for the other two speakers as well. The first question is, under which circumstance we destroy gametes and embryos?
So the thing is, under which circumstances means whenever you want to destroy and whenever the time period is over. Even if the time period is over and if you want to maintain the embryos, as I told you, you can do it. It is in your hand. It is in your possession. So if person is not paying and still you want to maintain, you can do it. It is all up to you.
Okay. If the second question is, if embryos were transported from one center to another and neither center nor the patient have communicated for more than 5 years without any payment to the center, to either of the center, what is the legal method to destroy the embryos?
The method remains same. Whether you make the embryo or you receive the embryo, whatever contract you have made, that will ultimately be read. And you have to tell the clients that this is the time period for which we will keep the embryos, beyond which we will destroy. And I already told you the method how to destroy. You can give it in the, you can send the notices to the client. If that doesn't come, then you can destroy. You can go ahead and destroy the embryos.
Okay. The third question is, to export embryos of NRI couples, what are the formalities from where we can get the ICMR forms? If you can, please give the URL.
See, actually, you have to write to the ICMR, and ICMR has certain documents to be given to them. The couple will have to apply to the ICMR, that is first thing, and couple will have to give their credentials, the embryos, where the embryos were made, the ICMR enrollment number of that particular clinic, the number of embryos, the discharge summary or the ART summary they have to attach, and where they want to take the embryo, that also they have to give, which country, which place, which ART center. That the intention of treatment of that center also is required by the ICMR. If you submit all this, then they will give you permission, the NOC, and that you will have to submit it to the import-export department, and then they will allow you to shift the embryos.
Thank you. And the fourth question is, under what circumstances we can import embryos, oocytes, or sperms? Can husband send a semen sample for wife's treatment in India from another country?
See, as far as the embryos are concerned, embryos were restricted in 2015 and it was prohibited item.
Yes.
On 20th June 2020, they declared that for purpose of export, they allowed embryos with ICMR NOC. But as far as the biological material is concerned, our laws are open. Like we can import and export the biological material for any purpose. So you have to mention the purpose and you can bring in the semen, not the embryos.
So we can bring in semen or oocytes, but then embryos, we have to get a NOC from ICMR.
Embryos, no, you can't import embryos. You can only export. These conditions are relaxed only for export purpose, not for import. Yes. We already have enough population here, so they don't want any embryos to be imported to India. But export, yes, they are ready. And any genetic, any body fluid or biological material you can import, because we are importing and exporting biological material even for laboratory purpose. You can send your blood, semen, fluid, anything for laboratory purpose. So biological material is allowed outside and inside India for any purpose.
That's great. So we do have a lot of questions, but I'm just going to give you 1 minute of rest and have some other questions for the other two speakers as well. Dr. Alessandra or Dr. Kelly, if either of you can just answer, like for example, in 2015 in Chennai, where I reside, we had floods, and suddenly overnight, all the there was water until the ground floor. The ground floor of all the buildings were submerged in many of the areas, and so we were like shifting the embryo tanks, to the first floor. from hence then onwards, we started having all our IVF lab to everything in the first floor and never on the ground floor or anything. And especially the ones which were caught, the labs were the one which had their, sometimes in the basement, they would have the storage and or the labs or anything, or in the ground floor, they had lots of difficulty. So have you faced such things and how did you manage? It was such an overnight thing. Within 3-4 hours, our buildings were flooded and we just had to shift. It also happened in 2018 in Kerala as well. So, I mean, can you throw some light on us? And because the tanks are not watertight, you know, they are loose. So the caps are loose. So how do we, I mean, how have you had such situations and how do you manage such things? In that case, you know, only when there were wheelers and lifts and everything, lift wasn't working. So because there was no electricity, we were shifting on hands, all the tankers and everything. Please give us some insights into it.
Yes, thank you. Very interesting, devastating, very interesting question, devastating scenario. First of all, for our center, we have a contract with Air Liquide, so one of the tanks providers, that when we have an emergency, that we can actually call them 24/7, and they come with the big trucks to try to load these big tanks, because you cannot simply lift them and take them with you if you want to, you know, move away from an area that is flooded. Of course, having your center more upwards in the building is a very good way to go. But also we work on the second floor, but we also have a basement cryo room, yes, where our things are in the basement. So yes, so move it upstairs is one thing. And yeah, when you have such a situation, I mean, all regulations and all laws are gone. You are going to save the material and save as much as you can. So anything goes. I mean, if you have a clean room, then, you know, who cares about air quality at that time? Save all the things that you can save and do the best that you can do. I think that's the only reason, good practice point that I can give you. But if you can, please have a contract where you can have an emergency scenario. We also have contracts with different tissue banks in the Ghent area, that if we have such a situation or a fire, that we can move our material to theirs, and they are going to take care of our patients for pickup and things like that. So you really need to have an emergency contract with another center close by that you can, yeah, you can try to describe the situation, but it's difficult, but that you at least have somebody to call, somebody to go to, so that your patients and your material can be saved as much as you can.
Yes. In Italy, the situation is the same. Performing a disaster plan is mandatory by law.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. I mean, we don't have that, but then it was quite a situation we had to handle. And then slightly digressing from the topics we had, but then just to think of it, do you think that dry shippers and having dry tanks would be the thing of the future, or we would still be having liquid nitrogen tanks, given the transmission of such viruses, need to have a separate tank for COVID patients we have done during COVID pandemic and everything? Do you think the dry tanks would have been, well, the vapor tanks would be the thing of the future and not the liquid nitrogen tanks?
In my opinion, the dry shipper is good for short-term storage.
Okay.
Yes, because regarding the vapor phase of nitrogen, results are controversial. Many studies showed no acceptable survival of embryos, as Dr. Tillemann mentioned before. But on the other hand, Cobo and co-works in 2010 demonstrated that there is no effect on vitrified oocytes stored in vapor phase of nitrogen in terms of clinical outcomes. So, in my opinion, it's okay, the dry shipper, only for the short-term storage.
Okay. Do you have anything to add, Dr. Tillemann?
I think
yes, what Dr. Alteri says is correct. We do see, however, a shift towards vapor phase tanks for storing material. Biobanks, we have a huge biobank here in Ghent, and they only have actually vapor phase storage. So we keep our sperm for scientific research in vapor phase. And I think for certain types of material, vapor phase can be used. We know in certain Southern European countries, big oocyte banks also store in vapor. So I think maybe in the future we will have a shift towards a vapor phase tank system. But in IVF, we're a little bit reluctant to change things. So maybe we need to have more confident figures being published so that people will move away from the liquid nitrogen. I think it will be more cost effective and more safe for people manipulating the straws, because you can get burned in the face and things like that. So we have to take that also into account. So if we can, and data shows that vapor phase is safe and efficacious, then I think in the future we will move to those kinds of tanks, yes.
And just to ask, how often do you actually clean your tanks? Is it a norm mandate every year, or how does it go in each of your labs? It is just a very curious question. I'd like to know answers from as many directors of IVF lab as you both are.
In Ghent, our big tanks that are electronically driven, so the ones that are on the liquid nitrogen, we have a pipeline with liquid nitrogen. We have a huge bulk tank outside, so the tanks are filled automatically. Those tanks we dry out and we disinfect every 5 years, simply because you have to dry them out for the electronics. It's good to have them, thoroughly dried, and then we take advantage of that timing to disinfect them too. This is only for the big bulk tanks. For the little GT40 tanks, so that are filled manually, we never disinfect them. We do dry them out sometimes, but that's also for a practical point of view, just to see sometimes if we have some straws that have been, floating around and going to the bottom. So sometimes we dry them out, but we only disinfect once in 5 years the big bulk tanks, which 140 liters of liquid nitrogen. That's our practice.
Okay.
In my center in Italy, we have a plan of cleaning of our tanks each 5 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's great. So thank you so much. But then I have more questions for Dr. Hitesh. There's one which is very, very important, I guess. I think we should ask his vocal and have the answer. Can couples donate embryos to others anonymously and altruistically?
The answer is no, because in 2010 guidelines, that option is removed from Form G. You cannot do embryo donation of your embryo. And again, it will create brother and sister in this society. We have to keep that thing in mind. An embryo should not be given to any other couple.
What are the liabilities of a doctor when shifting embryos from one clinic to another clinic?
That depends where the problem where the actual problem has happened. See, liability is a very vast subject. There is no rule of thumb. It is like, what is the fault of a female coming for a treatment of infertility? It is a vast subject. You can't pinpoint one particular thing. Only thing is, while shifting the embryo in a contract, please add one more thing. A genetic mismatch will not be a responsibility of the clinic, either receiving or sending. That point also should be mentioned in the consent, because I have seen many times the different embryos are given by the clinic, or the receiving clinic is receiving some other embryos. And if the child is not matching genetically with the parent will later on complain to you. So you should tell them that we are not checking the pattern. We are not doing any paternity test at the time of receiving embryos. So we are not liable if you shift the embryos. You yourself are taking liability for the same.
Okay. Because we usually have a contract with the person, with a company to shift the embryos. And so I guess we should add this point as well. We have this whole elongated contract.
It is there in the contract which we developed. It is there in our contract. That line should be there.
There's one last question we would take. Procedure to discontinue storing of embryos of separated but not divorced couples.
Whether they are separated or not divorced, the separated are always married. See, in India, person has only two status, either single or person is married. Single can be widow, single can be unmarried, or single can be divorced. Otherwise, person is married. Staying separate doesn't take the marital right of a person. I stay separate from my wife 25 days in a month. That doesn't make me unmarried, right? So you have to consider that thing in your mind. If they are separated, they are still married till the time they get order from the court of divorce.
So I think we had a very, very lively discussion, right from total scientific to total admin and total practical to total legal issues. A very overhauling, fulfilling kind of a session. So I must thank Dr. Dhruv Shah and PCOS Society for giving us this opportunity of being experts on this session and being moderators for this session as well as panel discussion. So I think on behalf of Dr. Priya and myself, that is Dr. Nikhil Datar, I once again would like to congratulate Madam and the PCOS Society and thank both of them, all of them and all of you all for this kind opportunity.
Thank you. It was a great scientific session, and thank you, Dr. Hitesh. It was, as usual, a wealth of knowledge on what is the legal stand for each of us in India. It was a complete session for us to understand both the technical and the legal aspects. Thank you again for the excellent presentations.